And so it ended up being, what was a joke ended up being this incredible career move for me. So it's like, it was such a good lesson in like, don't like turn your nose up at things that maybe don't have the best reputation, because it's like, well, you could turn them into whatever you want them to be.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy, with yours truly, Michael Kahan.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. What a great chat we have in store. Chris has a beautiful balance between depth, humour, as well as having great and unique insights. He's a beautiful conversationalist and a storyteller with a great playful energy about him. You can see why he's been thriving in the industry. I also love how he talks about being a showrunner and working together with everyone to create the ultimate vision. It was so cool to hear. He's also really funny. This was so much fun. I had a blast, and I think you will too. Chris also has a number of shows out, including at the International Melbourne Comedy Festival. Check them out before they sell out. Links are in the episode notes. Okay, let's get into it. Chris Parker is an award-winning comedian, actor, writer, showrunner, and podcaster. The past year, Chris hosted the New Zealand Comedy Festival Gala and toured his latest show, Give Me One Good Reason Why I Shouldn't Throw My Phone Off This Bridge, to full houses throughout Australia and New Zealand. He also made his primetime Australian TV debut on Thank God You're Here, where he won the episode, and released the highly anticipated second season of Double Parked, where he's the showrunner of. Is most commonly known for his funny Instagram and TikTok videos, which built him a huge social media audience over the last few years. He also had a legendary win on the hit New Zealand TV show Celebrity Treasure Island. Chris has also appeared in feature films such as Baby Drone, The Breaker Uppers, and Nude Tuesday, as well as 2 feature films on his own currently in development. As a comedian and a writer, Chris is a regular face on New Zealand television, appearing on 7 Days, Have You Been Paying Attention New Zealand, Jono and Ben, Funny Girls, Season 3 of Taskmaster New Zealand, and the sitcom Golden Boys. Chris also co-hosts the podcast The Male Gaze with fellow comedian Eli Matheson. He is an upcoming digital video series in production. Chris was also listed as the Herald's Top 5 Entertainment Heroes of 2020 and 2021, and was also nominated for Television Personality of the Year. He's won a lot of awards. He's done it all. Check out the rest of his bio in the episode notes below. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot, and we chat about his evolving voice, performing on a broken foot multiple times, being an improv king, and his 10-hour improv day, being the felting guy, his upcoming tour, being a showrunner and leadership, thriving on Celebrity Treasure Island, plus plenty more. Before we get into this epic chat, in case you aren't aware, the videos are now available on YouTube under Michael Kahan. That's Kahan with a K, unless you're listening to it already. I'll still be posting snippets of these chats on Instagram under Funny in Failure, so check them out if you want to stay in the loop for upcoming episodes, or you want to ask a guest a question. I'd also love it if you would share the podcast or share your takeaways from the chat. It really motivates me, helps the podcast grow, and ensures I can lock in amazing guests like this one. And just as a final reminder, the podcast comes out at 3:30 Melbourne, Australian time, with the full video of the podcast to be released the following day. Okay, cool. Thank you. Let's get into it. I reckon we'll start where we were talking from, and I'd love to know about your podcast, Horror Stories, recording horror stories. What springs to mind?
Well, I don't know if we've done, whenever we try to do something kind of outlandish or ambitious with our podcast, it ends up failing. Like we once did an hour and a half podcast with Eli, my podcast host's ex-girlfriend, who's like a really best friend of mine, and it was such a good episode. And then we just did not hit record, and then it never made it to the light of day. But I'd say like the worst like podcast nightmare is just what podcasts have become. Like, remember when they were just things you would listen to, and now it's like it's every time it's a TV episode, and it's just unsustainable. Like you have to really think about how you look. Been going in for a podcast where it used to be like, you look like a piece of shit.
Oh, you
And
mean
then
like with the video, and now it's like professional people watching on YouTube?
My God. The whole point of it was that it was just so accessible. Like you could just run at it and pick it up and have a go. And I think that's what drew me to it. Because I started podcasting in 2016?
Oh, wow.
I know. I've been doing the same podcast forever for like no money, but just I enjoy the art of it, I guess. I enjoy creating it.
That's really cool. Remind everyone the name. I've said in the episode notes. But
That's right. It's called The Male Gaze, and it's my friend Eli Mathewson and I, and we've been doing a podcast about because we hadn't come out to each other until we were like 22, 23, but we'd been friends since we were like 14. And so like the sort of initial premise of the podcast was like, there's so much to catch up on. Now the podcast has been going for like 8 years, 9 years, and we've caught up. So it's more about this like slow descent into becoming too old and too irrelevant to maintain a podcast about one, our sexuality, and two, being like young and like crashing our way through life.
I like that, and I've heard
at some point you have to have it together.
I hear what you're saying. I've heard a few episodes. It's hilarious. And you mentioned that you hadn't come out together. So what does that mean? You hadn't come out in general, or you hadn't come out to each other?
Oh, like we hadn't come out to each other as friends until we were both like friends in Christchurch in New Zealand for like 5 years both in the closet, and both sort of privately navigating this thing that then we moved to different cities and had different experiences, and we weren't like best friends, but we probably would have been if we were like, hey, I have the same secret as you.
Was this a surprise when you came out to each other?
We didn't kind of come out to each other. He broke up with Brinley. They've capitalized on this, but they've monetized this. They're happy for their names to be out on this. And then I was closer with Bryn than Eli. And so Bryn messaged me at like 3 a.m. one morning when I was like 19 or 20. And no, older, 21. And she was like, can we talk? And I was like, oh, sure. And then we had this like amazing night out where she was talking about how Eli broke up with her. And then it sort of led to her telling me that Eli was gay. And so that was sort of how I found out, was like through this like whisper network and through my best friend at the time who's like broken up with her boyfriend because he was gay. And weirdly, I should have been like, this is a sign for you to tell Brinley your secret as well. And maybe I'm just such a good person and just like, this just totally plays against any narcissistic claims that have been laid against me. But I really didn't think about myself in that moment. I was just like, really, truly just like, I had no idea that was going on for Eli. So, I'm a great person, and it's good to get that off the top of the podcast.
I like that. And I hope deep down you're like, we're going to do a podcast with you and Eli, and we're going to milk it for all it's worth and not click the record button.
8 years later, had we known, what
maybe
would
that
say?
was I don't know where you go with this, but maybe sometimes like when podcasts don't record, maybe like it was not needed to go out to the universe. Because do you remember the conversation? Because that could be like quite an intense conversation when you bring in an ex.
Yeah, I mean, we're all like, Brinley's a comedian, Eli's a comedian, I'm a comedian. So like we all have the same sort of approach to these sort of things. You know what? In hindsight, it is kind of a good thing. I feel like there's such a contentification of like everything that's going on in our lives. And I admit that's like the comedian's curse, but just also the curse of having like Instagram and TikTok in 2025. You're like, well, could I film this? Could I turn this into something? And it's kind of nice to just like experience something and be like, and that's just for my memories.
I fully agree. How do you balance that? Because I've got a few friends in this space, and one guy, for example, he wanted to do like fake podcasts with me just to get like content out there, and it just felt so like non-authentic. I'm like, I'd rather just have
Hang
lunch
out
and
with
dinner
you.
with you. Say that again.
Just hang out with them. Yeah.
And we came up with the same conclusion, but you're right. Everything needs to be content. Like people I know, like the best thing happened to me. My grandmother died. I've got so much content, and it can become a bit. I'm a little bit like that with screenwriting. Like, oh, that could be a good idea for this episode, but I don't go, let's film it, let's get it out there. You know what I mean? How do you balance that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't. Like, I wish I had the answer, but I'm like as cursed as anyone else. Like, I am such a victim to like Mark Zuckerberg's evil plan. Like, he got me. Like, he got me. And I think it would be totally like fake of me to sit on a moral high horse and be like, "Ah, it's all about balance." It's not. It's about me putting my phone into an ice cream container and trying to bury it under the ground so that I like don't go on it during the day because the temptation is too strong.
Do you have tactics? Because you do so many things. And you probably got a lot of people calling you. How do you kind of resist it? Do you have any tactics?
I say out loud to myself, this is driving me crazy. And I do feel like that sort of like open admission of like torture. Like I'm forced to listen to myself and be like, okay, put the phone down. But it's hard because I'm addicted. I'm a literal addict.
I think we all are. And I would imagine it might be slightly harder for you, not also because you're a comedian, but I believe during like
much harder for me.
But I don't want to talk about lockdowns, but I also believe like during lockdowns you became even more viral and you were doing felting and you were doing skits as well. And I'm sure, we're in our own environment. That would have been like a big hit getting so much attention. How did you cope with that?
I didn't cope with it. That's what I'm saying. It caused an unhealthy relationship between me, my phone, and attention. I saw a therapist about it. It's bad. It's so bad. I mean, I think I could probably fool myself into saying like, I do it because I like creating. And there is a part of me that just like loved creating. So as long as I stayed creative and passionate about what I was making, I was happy to make a video a day. I was happy to do my felting journey or whatever. And then as soon as it becomes like, this is great for your career, like you need to like keep up the content and it's sort of like, I always feel like the people that first sort of jump onto these tech platforms or these sort of moments, like it was before like Instagram had even called it Reels. Like I was just making like videos on Instagram. And not to say like I'm a pioneer, like I was a cog in the meta machine. Like they knew people like me were going to do this. This was part of their plan. Like I didn't have the idea. They led me down this path by feeding me videos a little bit earlier than other people probably. Like it's sick. It's sick. Anyway, that's when it's really fun, when it's like in the early days and you're kind of navigating the art form and then art form. I guess it's an art form.
Yeah, I think it is.
But then as soon as like I describe it as like the people who made title pages at primary school and had organized pencil cases got on board and started making it, it became like too high tech for me. And I started like, I couldn't keep up with them, even though like their approach was being like, aha, like let's utilize this thing, capitalize on it and sell like skincare lines with this or whatever. Like it becomes this, like everything, like tool for this like capitalist machine. But, and then that's just sort of when I fell out of love with it. So I don't know where I'm at with it now. I'm just like, I do it because it's important to keep a social presence alive so I can tour my live shows, which is the thing I love doing. And I'll only make reels if I'm inspired by an idea and I think it's worth putting it out there.
That's a big journey. That sounds like big growth from going like every day to only doing what inspires you and you.
It was probably self-sabotage and like career suicide or whatever. Like I'm an Instagram, like I could totally have run with like Instagram comedian Chris Parker, but there was a part of me that just like rejects that.
I've heard you talk about that. Through my research, I haven't heard anyone refer to you as that. Like everyone, you're a comedian.
God. Well, I didn't start out that way, but I mean, the thing I guess why I shudder at that term Instagram comedian is that Instagram now is a digital mall. Like it is like just there's just so many people trying to sell you shit there. Like it's just products and companies. And it's like you'll make a video and then it'll be like Nike and like some 19-year-old girl from Nike who's working on their socials being like slay queen, like in your comments. And you're like, I'm not making this to talk to companies. I'm making this to make videos for my friends and like a bit of a community that I've built.
Yeah.
So I guess like a bit of the love for that has sort of wilted and died. But I didn't get into it this way. Like I started doing all of this because I wanted to be on stage and I liked doing plays.
Yes, and
Acting.
maybe we should start a little bit with your journey because I believe you went to like drama school. I've got so many questions. You
Yeah.
didn't think that you would work as an actor, and then you have been working as an actor, and then you do improv for like 10 years, and there's this whole journey here. You do when does stand-up actually come into the picture?
Yeah, it's like, okay, so legacy story is that always wanted to act, always wanted to be on stage. It wasn't about maybe like being the most dramatic like performer out there, as it was more about being like on stage and being in front of a crowd and also being immersed in an experience. Like I think that's what I love the most about being on stage was being immersed in an experience. And then I went to drama school, Toi Whakaari, which is the national drama school in New Zealand, and as like prestigious. Every country sort of got one. The NIDA of New Zealand, of Australia, whatever.
I stuffed that up.
Yeah, and there was kind of an intense audition process, and they take 20 students, and they'd also made this like very famous to drama kids documentary called Tough Act, which tracked a whole bunch of acting students applying, auditioning in their first year of this drama school. So
That's pretty intense.
it's pretty intense. And I had watched it religiously and was like, that's what I want to be. That's what I want to be doing. It was like so like vividly my dream. So then when I was 17 or 18 at high school, I was just like so tunnel focused on that idea. And so when I auditioned and I got a recall and then got in, I actually couldn't believe it. But like my dream had come true. Like it's all I ever wanted. It was the best feeling in the world is when your dreams come true.
Nice.
And then it opened me up to Wellington, which is such a creative city. And it opened me up to like really creative people with great taste. And it also opened me up to the challenges of kind of acting and my sort of discomfort, I guess, in being like, my liege. Like I couldn't quite do that. And I found myself wanting to make people laugh more. And then I started making sketch comedy with friends while we were at drama school to sort of exercise a creative pursuit and like try and make something and also try and be successful, because we were constantly being like told by tutors like stop doing that, stop doing that, stop doing that. And we wanted to experience like, I guess not like we weren't conscious of this, but this is probably what was driving it. Like how can we benefit like off our own like innate comedic qualities that we are being told to repress because they're not like maybe perceived as like like dramatic and of integrity. Like we're kind of selling ourselves short. And so we started making sketch comedy, and then we became like, we felt what it was to be like winning on stage, and we felt what it was to have like an audience laughing at something that we had created and how powerful that felt. And then so that's when I just started doing the New Zealand International Comedy Festival with my friend Hayley Sproul, who's
been on the podcast.
Been on the pod.
She's a lovely lady.
Incredible.
Very
such
funny.
a talent.
Yeah.
And we were making sketch comedy together. And then I started making solo works. And I say works because they weren't like it's only been conventionally stand up recently, but prior to that, like the first show I made was in 2015. It's called No More Dancing in the Good Room, and it's like an autobiographical dance work about coming out of the closet and like giving up dance as a child, and it's deeply unfunny. And I put it on in the comedy festival because I'm like, I'm a funny guy.
I like deeply, I'm not unfunny, deeply unfunny.
No, deep, like the most earnest, sincere work that's ever lived. It was like I dance with a video of my former self. Like it is so beautiful. I'm so proud of it.
Nice.
But looking back, I can honestly say it's definitely not comedy.
I'm glad that you had that. Did it feel very like cathartic, very healing doing a show like that?
Yes. I was also just like so proud of it. Like I'd worked with a director and designers, and it was like kind of it was a big scale work, and I toured it like around the country, and I was 25, which actually is like kind of young, and I didn't really know what I was holding in terms of like the work, but it's really good. The second time I did it, because I brought it back for Pride, and by this point I'm like selling out shows of it, which felt really exciting. It was buzz around the work, and I produced it myself, and I'd sold out 9 nights.
Wow.
Of the Q Loft, which is like 120 seats, which was massive for me.
Yeah.
And on the dress rehearsal, I break my foot.
Oh, that's the story.
Yeah.
Okay. And you had a conversation, I believe, with your dad about whether you should continue. Can you tell me how that went?
Well, I'm distraught. Because as I said, it's not a stand-up show. It is a hour-long contemporary dance work.
You know how crazy this sounds? It's like, I'm very proud of you, but it's like crazy. It's not just like you could sit on a chair. You're doing that. Yeah.
So I am like, it's dress rehearsal. I've done a leap. I've landed badly. I've been a bit stressed, and we all in the room heard a snap, but we all decided to pretend we didn't. And I scream like I've never experienced a panic attack and never have again, but I experienced what I think is, because I've heard other people describe them as a full level 10 panic attack. Like I cannot breathe. I'm going to pass out. Also, I have just broken my foot, but I have not admitted this yet. Turns out I'm great at denial. So we open the next night, and I haven't gone to the doctor yet. I've just strapped it up, and I've taken Panadol. And I dance on it strapped. My foot is black, like it is swollen and bruised. And I talked to my director, and they were like, hands and face, just all hands and face, draw the eye up to the hands and the face. So that was the plan. And I did 5 nights like that.
To draw away from the foot, because like if you're wincing and you're in pain, you might be looking. Is that just so everyone can focus on?
Oh yeah, and to be like, it's fine, don't look at my foot. I do 4 nights like that. Without having seen a doctor.
I don't know, it was that many.
And then I go to the doctor. My now husband, then boyfriend, it was our 2nd year anniversary. He says, or 1st year anniversary, he says to me, hey, I had a day off. And he goes, I'm not letting you leave the house unless we're going to the doctors, like to the hospital to get an x-ray.
A wise man.
I was like, oh. I was putting it off because I knew what the answer was going to be. So we go, the hospital like really mean because they're like, you're an idiot. And also they didn't understand. Like they were like, get an understudy. And I was like, it's an autobiographical dance work. It has to be me.
Yep.
So they want to operate on my foot. And
operate?
Yep. And put me in a cast that night. I've got 5 more shows to go. And so I leave the hospital, and I'm like, I'm going to go somewhere else, And so then I go to like the White Cross or something, and like praying that they can help me. And they do an x-ray. They're like, it's broken. But they put me in a moon boot. And I'm like, in my brain, I'm like, ACC. Like, you can't go against doctor's orders and then get your like money for the ACC back. So I get them to write in the form not that I'm going to be on bed rest, but I'm going to like change my performance to make sure that I look after my foot.
Yeah.
But I keep the terms vague so that I can take my moon boot off and dance 5 more nights on
Sneaky.
a broken foot
Yeah, that's insane.
and still get my ACC money so that like I can pay for all this stuff. I would not recommend it, but I did that. So I danced 9 nights in total, broken foot off Panadol. I would arrive at the theater in my moon boot, like full moon boot and crutches up the back entrance because I was like, I don't want the audience to see that I'm in pain. It's going to get in the way of them enjoying the show. I'd rather than be like, he's just sprained it and he's all good. I'm like literally pirouetting on stage. Like it's so crazy. So I'd go up the back entrance. I'd go backstage. I'd take my moon boot off. I'd put my crutches away. I'd drop 2 Panadol. I still wanted to feel it a little bit, so I didn't trust it entirely.
Yeah.
And then I'd go out and dance for 50 minutes on a broken foot. And
this is insane.
It's insane. And then would bow. And then once it was finished, like I just remember like sobbing backstage because I was like, I can't believe what I've been through. But
yeah, wow.
Yeah, I was talking to my dad about it the night that the doctor was like, we're going to operate. And I was like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And the dad was like, well, Richie McCaw won the World Cup on a broken foot. And I was like, okay, we'll share stories one day.
It's such a dad response as well.
I know. He loved it. It was like really like pulling out the sort of sportsmanship of gay autobiographical dance works. And I think he was like, finally, I can sort of like relate to this.
Okay. So I've written down like maybe 50 questions. We'll see how we go. Okay. What was, because the pain would have been so intense. You're obviously really proud of the show. It's very special to you. And you're also, you know, there's a message in there. There's meaning. What was the driving force to get you through that? Was it the message? Was it, I need the money? Was it, I just have to do this. I can't cancel the show, all the above.
Yeah, honestly, the money. I think it was the money. The idea of calling the show off felt like failure. And I felt like I really had a chance here. Like it felt like a breakout kind of moment. Like there was a lot of people coming to see the show, everyone clamoring to get a ticket. And yeah, I had like spent like 3 weeks rehearsing. The show had meant a lot to me. So I wanted to do it. And look, I wouldn't recommend, I don't know. Would I do it now? I'm going to say yes. I'm still like the show must go on attitude, but I don't think my husband would let me.
Yeah, he sounds like a good man. Have you ever had to cancel a show?
COVID, for sure.
Okay, but
not because I had it, but because it was happening.
Yep.
And I sort of felt that moral obligation to do that. Other cancelled shows.
I feel like you would have to be like shot like minimum like 5 times in the chest. And you're like, I can do one more.
I definitely like have like the only thing I ever want to do is be out on stage. And so like the idea of having to cancel doing my favorite thing in the world is annoying to me.
Annoying. That's a very specific word.
I'm like, no, I want to be out there. So no, I haven't ever cancelled, and I've suffered I've had a broken foot. I've cut my toe and bled out on stage. I once had like I remember a school recital. I was like playing Jonah and the Whale, and I was like vomiting into an ice cream bucket, and then like being like, I love dancing in this whale, like at the same time. Like I just
and you're like cleaning up the vomit off like your chin.
Yeah. I know. I just there's that horrible phrase of like Dr. Theatre or whatever it is, but yeah, I guess it just comes in and saves you.
Interesting. I would imagine also the adrenaline, but you mentioned you cried afterwards. After the whole run, what was the feeling? Obviously intense pain, but was there relief? Like I'm sure it just would have been a whirlwind of.
It was immense relief. Like it was, yeah. Like I think I was bottling up. I don't know. I am a hypochondriac. I am a bit of a drama queen, but also the comedian in me is a bit of a sharpshooter as well. And I know when I'm being ridiculous. So it's not like I was crumbling on the floor and sobbing for an audience. I was alone backstage. I think what had happened was that the show's kind of personal, but beyond that, like I was bottling up so much stress trying to keep this like broken foot lie down, the kind of pressure of like not wanting to financially sink myself because I invested everything into this show and was going to have to cancel it. All that kind of stuff was just boiling over. And then in a way that I wouldn't cry now, but it was kind of the first time that I'd done this.
Well, I would also
So I was just backstage and it just fell apart because I was like, thank God I got through that.
I think like it shows massive resilience, but also underlying like what the show was actually about. Like it's an important message for you. Do you ever like look back at that experience and be like, wow, I did that? Because not many people would be able to do what you did. Like, has it given you this like strength and courage or resilience?
Yeah, I guess so. I've done lots of crazy things like this, which I'm like, wow, I didn't realize I was capable of this. I'm sort of surprised by it,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I don't necessarily believe that I've like got this resilience like that's extraordinary or anything. I just think like I'm like all people are capable of this.
Yeah, I hear
But maybe
what you're
that's
saying, but
maybe
it's
that's
like
a toxic state of mind. Like this is why I'm not going to have kids because I'm going to be like, rise up and face these challenges. This is what humans do. I
Daddy,
don't
my
know.
legs aren't working. He's like, well, use your arms, son.
Yeah. No, like literally. I remember once when I was a child, falling off my bike and like fell on my arm weird, and I broke my arm. And my mum was like, "All right, stop the waterworks, back on the bike." And I was like, "It hurts." And she's like, "Go on back on your bike or go inside and lie down." And I was like, "Oh," so I went inside and lay down, and it turns out fully broke my arm. And so mum was like, "Oops." So I guess
can
that's
see where
maybe.
I
Yeah,
can see
she's
where
not
you're
like
coming from.
she's a very sympathetic mother, but it's just like I don't know. It's a maybe it's a more of an attitude of like all New Zealanders and Australians as well. Like we're not very like I don't know. Just
She'll
sort
be
of,
right. You know that
yeah,
saying.
she'll be right for sure. And sometimes she won't be right.
Yeah,
Sometimes
no, it's not
you broke
necessarily.
your foot.
It's not necessarily the healthiest saying. And you mentioned that
No.
you've done a lot of crazy things. This probably doesn't even make your top 10, but I've been really impressed by this. I believe because you've been doing improv for 10 years as part of Snort, that you did a 10-hour improv. Why?
Yes.
How? Tell me
I
more.
forgot I did that. Yeah, it was. So we did Snort for 10 years. This is the improv show. So when I moved to Auckland from Wellington,
Yeah.
the kind of the year that I moved was sort of like, yeah, it was just one of those sort of zeitgeisty things where like all the right people ended up being free and like unemployed and young to like want to start an improv group. So this was like Rose Matafeo and Guy Montgomery and Brinley and Eli and Laura and Joey from Two Hearts. And it was just this like incredible group of people who I would say like Australians know as like those annoying Kiwis now. But
I think we've
we
heard about this when I was doing improv. Maybe did you ever collaborate with Australians? There were like this New Zealand people that they spoke
yeah,
about this group. It's like, yeah,
yeah, we'd hang out all the time. So we'd do a Friday night show at the Basement Theatre, which is like the theatre that we all do our shows at. I'm doing a show there tomorrow night. Like
oh, nice.
it's just always like a home base. Um, And so we'd spend every Friday night there improvising for free with each other. And through that group, like we all started doing our own shows and really like literally like it created me into the comedian that I am. Like it's just this very important network of individuals who I met at the right moment in my life.
Cool.
And yeah, it was so cool. I can't believe I got to live through it. It's like definitely career defining like chapter of my life.
Wow.
And just growing a sense of humor with like these people and you'd have really great shows with them and really bad shows with them. And it's just the best way to kind of like weather those emerging years of getting into comedy. So it meant a lot. So we decided after 10 years of doing this show that we were too old to do it. Like there were people who had kids and like
Oh, yeah.
people were married and it's just like it gets a bit like weird to be like, honey, look after the kids. I'm off to do this improv show for free. And so we were like, and like we didn't want the audience to sort of die away. And so we were like, well, what should we do? Like, do we continue this? We love hanging out with each other. We love doing improv together, but like we could grow resentful of this or spiteful of each other because of our lives getting in the way.
Yeah.
So we decided to end it, which with a group suicide pact. No, with a group.
You go first, and I'll definitely go after you.
Yeah. Oh, yes, Andrew, don't you worry. We decided to call it just end the show, and it was such a powerful thing. Like I just think because we just feel like everything's supposed to last forever.
Yep.
And that to sort of call things quits is to fail, but it was no, you can end something at a good point early and be and that's that done, and that will feel great. And so the way that we decided to end it was to celebrate 10 years of Snort. We'll do 10 hours of improv in a row,
Which is insane.
and
In a cool
because
way.
by the end of that season, there was by the end of that our 10th year, we had maybe 30 in the cast. We started with 8.
Oh, wow.
So we were oh, well, we can just reshuffle the casts
Yeah.
to, make sure that no one goes crazy. And I was and they were but does anyone want to do the full 10 hours? And I was just thinking this show meant the world to me. And also I've been in it since the first day. And
The OG.
I would love to know if I could improvise for 10 hours. So I did 10 shows back to back because, I just do stuff like that. I love the idea of doing that. I love to know what can happen. It's a great challenge and I would never do it again. But it was sort of like a psychedelic dream. Because you would be thank you, good night at the end of one show, and then you'd have a 15-minute turnaround, and then you'd be walking back out on stage, and I just couldn't believe I was heading back out on stage, and those are the bits that kind of tripped me out, because when I was on stage, I was it was fine. It was well, you're improvising. It could be any time of the day in any year, but it was just the walking in and out of the stage 10 times that made me go crazy.
I can only imagine it's a never-ending clock. But then when you're there, you're grounded, you're present in the moment.
But that being said, I kind of felt like I did a pretty good job.
What was after
crazy.
Hour 7, where you're just can't sleep, the clown will eat me, or was it just once you're in it, you were? It was
once
hour
I was
1.
in it, I was in it. I do love the maybe I do love the kind of the test of performance sometimes. I do love the endurance and the athleticism, and do you still have anything in the tank left to give this all over to your audience? And I think that's kind of weirdly what's become my style. I think because we're always trying to work out what our style is. And I'm I end every show in buckets of sweat. I'm just so sweaty and physical out there. I don't know how to not be like that.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's my style. And so, I like the kind of rigor of stand-up. I love just giving it my all.
I like that, and it comes across. I've seen so much of your stuff. I love it. And, I've got so many questions, my God. When you're doing your style and your voice, some people always want to be someone else, or you play. And I know you've spoken about, I watched this long interview where you're talking about how you allowed for your gay voice and how that's come over time. But I would imagine when you were starting stand-up, you've still been you've just allowed for different pieces, or have you massively changed over the years?
I guess I'm always, you're just always in, oh my God, this camera, the way that my camera zooms in and out is so funny to me. Sorry, it's really distracting. Okay, I'm going to
I always move me out, so I never.
Oh, that's such a good idea. I'm not going to do that. It's important. This is being filmed. Okay. I think I'm always in relationship to my identity, only because my identity is fueling the content that I'm talking about. So my hours are always what's going on for me, usually. And so therefore you're sort of in relationship to, the sexuality part of yourself, which is interesting because I don't know if no, I would say anyone talks about, it's just that trope of gay comedians can only talk about being gay, and it's it is a big part of it. You're it's kind of interesting. I do like talking about it because it does impact my daily life, but in the way that I guess fatherhood does for some people, or you know, a disability would, or and being gay is a disability, and I want that on record.
I'm only quoting that, and then I'm not releasing the podcast.
um, I think, yeah, it's like every year I feel so kind of like different about who I am in this world and who I am in relationship to like queer media, I guess because of the way that we talk about it. We're like, right, like I'm one of X amount of voices on the subject here in New Zealand anyway. And so however you're kind of feeling about it is like kind of becomes like part of the conversation. So you do sort of feel a bit like responsible for that slightly.
Yeah.
Even though you're just like, I'm just literally just talking about myself. So I actually am a narcissist.
It's very interesting because, doing the improv that like helped develop like your style as well, or your comedy, the performance, doing the drama school. Then you mentioned that you were surrounded by amazing people, and then the acting opened you up, and maybe that's also partly because of your friends. Like I feel like this has just been a big journey of also like self-discovery as well.
Yes, and also just being creative. Like for me, I like the creation part of shows as well. Like I like having an idea for a show and then making that. And so I've made like probably I'm like the thing that I'm sort of weirdly proud of and is a very like intriguing part of my career, I feel like, is that there is no sort of continuity to it apart from that I'm in it and that it's sort of like gay, I guess. But like I'll do plays, I'll write
TV shows.
TV, I'll do whatever. Like I'll make Instagram videos, I'll do Instagram ads. I will do whatever, because I want to make stuff. I make a felt hat. Like all of that is just like a creative pursuit. And I think I like following those through because I'm like, oh, I wonder where this is going to end up and where it's going to take me.
I think that is amazing. And I used to be an accountant,
You know
and
what
I
I am?
just
I'm amazing.
you are amazing. We're just going to quote that as well. And on top of because, I used to be an accountant and I didn't chase like anything that I viewed as fun. Like I wanted to do stand up at that stage. Now I'm doing podcasts and screenwriting, but I thought I wouldn't even allow myself to look into what's play and fun. And now you honor yourself by like doing things that excite you or you enjoy. Is that always the case? If there's an opportunity or something, you'll just do it? Like it seems like you might
Yeah.
procrastinate, but you just do it. Not many people can say they do it.
Yeah, I guess so. Like I don't think I'm above any offer as well. Like I think you can turn any opportunity into what do you want it to be. Like
Yeah.
I did like probably one of the best moves in my career, if you were gonna look on like a spreadsheet here, it was when I did Celebrity Treasure Island in New Zealand, which is our like reality TV show. And it's kind of like I'm a celeb, but it's New Zealand, so it's like a
I was wondering
little
about that.
hokey. It didn't have the greatest reputation. Let's just say that. Like we New Zealanders don't. I think because like Australian maths is like a juggernaut that we just don't have the same kind of relationship to our own reality TV here. Like we export it, so we prefer like watching like American reality. Anyway, I get offered to do this show called Celebrity Treasure Island. So it's like it was first created in the 90s and then they sort of canned it and then they were like kind of bringing it back.
Yep.
And so it's like a whole bunch of, you know, washed up celebs is kind of the way that the comment sections would refer to us
That would have
as.
been exciting. Yeah, I'm washed up. I'm just
Yeah, I was
starting.
like,
but
I
I'm
haven't even
washed up.
emerged. What are you talking about? It's usually people on the rise or descent, is how they describe it. Who
Which one am
decide,
I?
yeah, exactly. We go live on, usually it's in like Fiji and it's like Survivor. So you're kind of like living in these little bases. There's a couple of teams. You compete in challenges. There's like each episode, like there's sort of an elimination challenge and one person goes home. And then whoever wins the season has to like, or the final is like a big treasure hunt. And then whoever digs up the treasure wins like X amount of money for a charity.
Yeah.
So I get asked to do it pre-COVID, so like 2019,
Yep.
and I'm interested. And then it gets postponed and blah, 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 blah. And then I start making videos and people start being like, oh my God, Chris is that like Instagram guy. So suddenly there's like a place for me and people know how to sort of describe me. And then they decide to go ahead with the TV show. And yeah, it's like a bit of a joke. Like people are sort of like, oh, it's not the greatest career move, but it's COVID. I need the money. It's like an opportunity. And also I'm like, who knows what might come out of this? Yeah. Turns out it was like the greatest experience of my life. I meet these like incredible people. Because of COVID, I guess, like I get to be on a team and form this like alliance with like Lance Savali, like who like has danced for Beyonce and Rihanna, and like he's just an incredible guy, and he's so famous, and people adore him, and it's kind of an unlikely friendship that we form. And then I form a friendship with like Buck Shelford, who was the very first, like you know, he's like a legacy All Black player who like his legacy story is that he tore his scrotum during a rugby game and he taped it up with like duct tape and like continued the game, and
just like you with your foot.
Just like me with my foot. And so but because everyone's locked down in New Zealand, people are so tired of watching content, they've decided to go back to like free to view television, and the ratings are crazy. It's like 2001 and we're all watching TV again. And I'm getting this feeling of like an episode playing and then like my phone being like flooded with people wanting to talk to me. And it's just like this thrill. Anyway, I know I win this show because I had done it.
Yep.
So I have this like, but I had to keep it this like lifelong secret for like 8 months, you know.
What would happen if you were to tell people? Like
they would sue me for like $2 million or something. I think it was like they can sue you for cost of production. You sign the contract. So yeah, it's like a secret. And because usually that stuff doesn't really matter in New Zealand because it's like all a joke, but people were watching the show, like, and they were really intense about it. And so it was my first time really feeling like famous, but also I wasn't like walking the streets of Auckland because we were locked down. So I was feeling so famous, but I was like, I couldn't
get
leave
the
my
benefit.
house. So all I was seeing just like was what people were talking about me online. So I do lose my mind a little bit, but yeah, I end up winning that show because I'm basically, and that episode is like remarkable television because it's like, it ends in this like final treasure hunt race. And it's Lance, the incredibly fit, amazing, divine, hilarious dancer who's like an athlete, and this incredible influencer called Edna Swart, who's again like an athlete, like she's been training for this, and me, a comedian who has spent like his build up and lead up to this doing a little bit of gym, but mainly just like making videos on his phone. I'm so unfit. I'm in dead last place. They're just like miles ahead of me. I think they're like 11 minutes ahead of me in terms of like TV time, which is like a lifetime. You know, 11 minutes is like half an episode.
Yeah.
And then we get to the final, I catch up somehow, and they're still digging for this treasure. And because of my understanding of like plants, I had this like grass that was growing in my backyard, kikuya, which is like, it grows like ropes. It's a coastal grass that we imported here. Learned this from my husband's father. We imported it in like the 1960s or whatever, and now it's like a nightmare. It's like a noxious weed. We can't get rid of it, but like it grows like ropes down into the soil. Like once you've got it, like you're just living with it. You may as well grow it out. Yeah. I was trying to dig it up for a long time. I know it's impossible to get underneath. So the where we were digging up the treasure was in a big field of that like grass, and I was like, well, it can't be under here because I've dug this stuff up before.
That's so good.
And so I pull the grass till I find where the grass stops, and then I find the treasure and make TV magic, and I sob and my like mouth is bleeding and like it's wild. And like, I think honestly, if New Zealand could have thrown me a parade, they would have. Like, the energy is electric. Like, it's the best day of my life. And I've never been. Yeah, I did like, if you know, because again, trashy reality TV show, but I did like every interview imaginable talking about the show. Like it was a storm. And so it ended up being, what was a joke ended up being this incredible career move for me. So it's like, it was such a good lesson in like, don't like turn your nose up at things that maybe don't have the best reputation, because it's like, well, you could turn them into whatever you want them to be.
Okay. Brilliant lesson. You answered like 30 questions. It's also like a Slumdog Millionaire moment. You know how the guy knew all the answers? You're like, finally, this weed. Finally.
I know.
Full 360, 180 moment. Amazing. And I'm so glad that you had that experience. I don't know if you know a comedian, Joel Creasy from Australia.
Love Joel.
Yeah, hilarious, amazing guy. He was just, I just had him on the podcast recently, and he was talking about when he was on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, like similar to you.
Yeah.
All eyes are on him, but he became super famous. Like he had like paparazzi and stuff like that, and that moment, and he became friends with people he wouldn't normally become friends with, and he made it his own. You've made it your own. I love that.
Yeah, it's like the New Zealand version of that. So you're like, rather than being hounded by like paparazzi, it's like just like someone with a phone or whatever. Like,
It's the same.
and everyone's so kind. It was actually, what's really fascinating about that as well is I think because a lot of our community in Auckland specifically who deal with homelessness had like temporary shelter and ACOM throughout COVID. And so I think they were like watching it, because whenever I'm like hanging around like the streets at night, like I'm out partying or whatever, like they will always come up to me and be like, Chris, how are you? And like be so kind and want to talk to me about the show. And I'm like, I never have picked you for like a Chris Parker fan, but B, like a Treasure Island watcher. And it's just amazing. Like I love that show opened me up to like an audience that I wouldn't have grown through the basement theater doing snort, but like through like it really makes you broad, like, and brings you to like, my audiences really became quite like mixed and diverse and quite thrilling.
Good for you, but for like showing up and making your own, and also who would have thought you'd be the king of the homeless as well? Like, it's amazing.
Well, it's amazing what a gig can do. Like I've done quite a few corporates now for like all the construction, like road work guys. Like it's predominantly men. And so I did okay at that gig, but it was like to like honestly like 1,000 of them. And so now whenever I'm walking around Auckland, like all the road workers are like, they're like, hey, how are you going? It's like, it's quite nice.
Oh, nice. That's a great lesson. I think that's really powerful that you had that experience. Also, another amazing thing, and from a screenwriter, I've been obsessed and I've been super proud of you. Double Parked. It's my dream, and I've said it so many times so I won't bore everyone, but I almost got a TV show. I had LA production company. It almost went to plan. I thought I was going to get Netflix. I thought I was going to, have 20 seasons and do all of that. Didn't work out, which I'm glad it didn't work out, because it was a horrible fit and they were narcissistic and lawyers had said too many red flags and blah, 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 blah.
Oh.
Great lesson. It gave me confidence in knowing that, I can actually write.
Moly.
Yeah. I feel like you've probably either had some of these experiences or know people of these experiences. But regardless, Double Parked, you're the co-writer and the showrunner. That is huge. That's not easy to do. You're living my dream. How was that experience? How did you get it out there? Tell me everything.
Okay, so thank you so much. This is a show that Alice Snedden, who writes with Rose on Starstruck, and I created. We sort of came up with the idea like yonks ago, and then Kevin and Co, who create Taskmaster New Zealand and Australia, and Guymont Spelling Bee, and basically like every comedy production in New Zealand, they were developing the idea. They loved it, and they just sort of held on to it. But we'd had so many like dead ends with it that I'd sort of forgotten about it. And then there was this like miraculous funding round, because everything that we get goes through NZ On Air, our like local funders,
Like Screen Victoria or Screen Australia.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was doing maternity leave for some commercial radio, trying to make some money, and I was hot off the heels of winning Celebrity Treasure Island. And within like one funding round, I had a book deal. So I wrote a book.
Oh, yeah.
Well, no, I had a book due. I hadn't written the book. I got funded like a web series with Eli, my podcast host, about New Zealand's relationship to pornography.
Oh yeah, I saw this.
I will
as
do
well.
anything.
Yeah, but I think it's cool. Yeah.
And Double Parked got funded in the same round. And I was just like, oh no. Oh no. These were like, because the whole thing they say is like, always have a couple of pots on the boil because, you know, that's the secret to surviving this industry. You can like focus on like whatever pot's like getting closer to the boil and, you know, but then if that one dies down, you can go over to another one. So you should never just like kind of focus on one show. Yep. But they all boiled over at the same time. And I was like, so within like a year, I had to do like it was my breakout kind of like year with like new management in Australia. So I had that tour to do. Nice. I had a book to write. I had to do a docuseries about like this really heated issue around pornography and Double Parked to create all at the same time. And
that's so like, crazy.
And I was going to get married that year. And so there was this rash around my eye that just like never disappeared. And Alice,
because of the stress of having to balance and do it all. Yeah.
And Alice was so busy with Starstruck, and they were going again, and then she had to move to the UK. And I remember just being like sobbing and begging to her, being like, please, you can't leave me. Like, I can't do this without you. I don't know how to show run. Like, because she was going to show run, and I was going to like, just kind of like learn through her, and also kind of be like a spec writer on set. And she couldn't commit in that full capacity. So I was like, I'm gonna take this opportunity and run with it. And so how did I get through it? Like, I still don't know. There's just every day there's so much learning with show running and writing, and I'm like never like I'm proud that I did it, but like there's so much I would improve. There's so many things I would do differently. It's just like the growth of the career, like of that job. Like, and I feel like anyone can relate in any industry. It's like, I'm never like, kill that. Like, it's just hard work. It's like writing and wrestling with story and feeling like your ideas are shit and going back to it and not giving up on it and then getting the right people on board. And I was just lucky to have like Madeline Sami of Deadlock fame as my director and co-star of that show, with Antonia Preble, who's like our country's greatest actor. She is a phenomenon. Cool. And yeah, I just had the right people around me. And then it happened. And my thing was like, time is a healer. That's what I keep saying. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's what I was saying out loud.
Yeah.
Which is just like, you will have to go to sleep. You will have to wake up tomorrow. It will be one day closer to deadline, and you have X amount of work to do. So just do the work that's ahead of you and then go to sleep, and then you'll wake up again, and then you'll be one day even closer, and you'll have done some of that work. And it's just like, turn up every day and just do the work that's ahead of you. And then eventually you'll be on the other end being like, I don't know how I did that. And it's sort of what happens. But I get so daunted by it. Like, it's so bad for my health. It's made me age like 10 years. Like, I'm constantly farting. Like, I think it's like the cortisol or something. Like, my gut is like never been worse. It's just high pressure, because when you don't have responsibility, you know, it's easier. Like, you can just sort of slide on by. Just like when it's just like you doing stand up, it's like, it's just me to worry about. When you're leading, like show running, it's like you are in charge of all these departments. Like, and we hear these stories of like horrific toxic leaders, and we love to be like, well, that's the privilege of being in a job like that. And then you find yourself like in the privilege of having a job like that, and you're like, right, like I have to be held accountable as well for my actions. So not only do I have to lead this thing, but I have to lead this thing well. Because otherwise, head on guillotine, chop, like, you can't be a bad leader.
I'm really glad you bring up the leadership side, because most people, like, from a writing perspective, you just do the writing and maybe there's someone, inverted commas, above you who can like steer it. but you also have to have a leadership position, not just from that, but from across everything, but also the mental side. Because people don't like how I work is I'm writing a new script at the moment. If I've got too many podcasts, for example, I find it really hard mentally to focus on the script because a lot of my script writing is just walking. But if I've got, for example, you, I'm thinking, trying to get into your head, and that's just
Get out of there.
that's just a tiny part of the process. But then you've got a book, and you probably need to think all the time what's going in the book. The porn thing, you're trying to come up with new ideas. I don't know what it's called, so it sounds funny being the porn thing. All those
My
things.
porn addiction. Yeah.
Porn addiction. I'm going to call it the porn thing. It sounds better. But mentally, like how I work is all about the thinking outside of the actual craft. So I'm wondering, how can you actually like plan, or in that moment you're like, okay, ideas come. I don't have time to think about you later. You need to be activated now.
Yeah. I mean, again, kind of like the phone addiction thing. Like, I wish I had advice, but I feel like I just got through it. And I don't know if I necessarily well, I came out on top in the sense that I survived it and I think I did a good job. But like, I wasn't like smooth sailing. Like, it was fraught. Like, I had to like book a hotel room with me and my husband so I could like see him. Like, it comes at immense personal cost. Like, it's like, yeah, I don't know if I necessarily nailed it. I have any advice. Like, when people go through it now, like I've got Tom Sainsbury. Do you know Tom? He does like lots of great videos online too. We do a lot of comedy writing together, and he's currently show running a show and that he's in. And he was just talking about it, and I was like, I wish I had advice for you, but I just have sympathy. Like, it's hard. I'm just like, I hope you survive this and take good care of yourself, and you've got good people around you, because yeah, it gets easy. Like, it got easier the second time around because you've got experience. But yeah, I guess it's just like, it's a really hard job and it takes all your mind and your concentration. And I don't really know how I got through it.
And
sorry, it's not very inspiring.
No,
is it?
I think it's amazing because most people, they would just do the show running and then they might not even be able to write that much, or they might have to get someone else. I know you couldn't, you didn't have the other lady helping you, but then you're doing all the other stuff. Like, I've always thought mentally, I'm just going to have to do the show running. I won't be able to do the podcast, but it shows like there's a lot more out there as well, and you can do it. I think it's very inspiring. So I'm very proud of you in that regard.
Oh, that's so nice.
It's
Thank
like
you.
the dream. You're living the dream. And I've got so many questions. How did you mentioned the surrounding yourself with good people. Was that a fluke, or you deliberately got certain people? How did you kind of make that work?
It's kind of like having a wish list and believing in your idea enough that the people that you're so intimidated by because they're so talented are into the idea enough that they will say yes, even though it's the worst money they've ever received in their career. So, yeah, I guess a fluke in that sense. And they're cool. I think maybe that's where I am good as a showrunner, is like kind of setting my expectations out and my kind of hopes and ambitions quite clearly to the people that I work with. So I'm like,
that's great.
hey, like, this is a collaboration. So I want to write this role around you. I want your input. Like, you don't feel like anything that you have to say is stepping over a boundary. Like, my phone is always available if you want to talk something out. If you're not happy with something, I want all my lines of dialogue to fit in your mouth, if that makes sense. Because sometimes I feel like I say lines and I'm like I can't get the words out. I'm like, so I'll work through every single script, every single line of dialogue with you so that you feel confident and empowered and inspired by the work that we're making. And so that's sort of like the expectation that I set out. I mean, that's just the way I work. It doesn't make it easier. And I think if there was something that I was like, it has to be my way or the highway, then I'd work differently. But in this sense, I was like, I know that, the success of this thing is that every department, be it actors or camera or lighting or sound, wardrobe, have ownership over their department, and I'm like, and that I trust them. So I'd be like, they'd show me their ideas, and I'd be like, yeah, like I might push back on something, but yeah, you totally understand this, but you just have to. It's all about like, yeah, communication and trust, and yeah, for me, collaboration is really important because I'm like, you're not here to service a job for me to create my vision. We're creating this together.
You don't understand how rare that is. That's exactly how I want to work. In my head, all the words you said. I literally every day meditate on how I want to be as a showrunner, how I want to work with people. And I just wrote down a few things as well. And I like how you're saying you're not working for me, you're kind of working with me in that regard. Because at the end of the day, it's also like play and fun. It's not always going to be fun, but you're allowing for that creativity, you're empowering people. And that's how I believe you get the best out of people as well. And you spelt out your vision statement, your boundaries in that regard were very clear, and that sets the tone as well. Very important. I'm glad that that came naturally to you. How are you? You're too modest. How are you like with the tough decisions? Maybe a writer's written something that's not quite in alignment, or a department is doing something, not malicious, but you're like, nah, that's not actually going to work. We don't have the budget for that. Was that
Well, the budget one's easy because you're like, we don't have the budget for that. So good luck. Like, we can't make it, which is a great reason why. I think as well, all of this comes down to, it's sort of something we learned at drama school, really, which is like, make it about the work rather than the politics or the personal. So if you can't explain to the person that you're working with why you don't like their idea because it doesn't link back to the work, then yeah, it's going to feel personal. Yeah. If you can be like, which comes down to setting up that vision up top, and why that upfront work is so important. Because if you're like, here's our tone, here are our references, like this is the style and this is the story that we are serving, then you can just say to a writer, like, this is funny, but this doesn't serve our story.
Yeah. And
because this is our story. And then they go, I can't argue with that because you set that up top, And so that stuff, it's really important. And then also, I think I will always be like, I guess it's not my nature to be like, you're wrong. I think I'm like, there's always a good part of me that will be like, now, am I wrong?
Oh,
which I think is important
because there's egos involved. You're like the man. You've got other things as well to actually like come back and be like, let me actually ponder it. And especially when you're so busy, you could just be yes, no, and then you throw it away. You don't even think about it. But to actually,
I think as well, I trust people's instincts a lot, especially like across departments.
Yeah. And
sometimes I'm like, again, I was like, I made it very clear to like, it's kind of hard for them to know, but like, to our art team, it's like, really what we are serving here are these characters. Like, this isn't a show about the world. This is a show about like this relationship. And so a lot of the time, like, we're not going to be sweating over like what's in the back of the shot, even though it's important, but we are going to be tight a lot on our characters because it is about their relationship, how they're feeling.
Yeah.
And so they know that like color and world and warmth and all that and texture, like all that stuff is like important to support those feelings, like what we're trying to evoke. But like, I'm not going to be like, it's not giving the mid-century apocalypse that I'm after to create this world. It's like those, we're not sort of sweating over those decisions because it's mainly about the women in this show. But my favorite strategy is just going, okay, so often you get like two options. Hey, should we do like this pram or this pram? And I'll be like, I don't really know. Why don't we both say our instinct on the count of 3? Because then they feel like they're not trying to say something to like please me. They're just saying what they want, and I'm just saying what I want. Yeah. And then I'll go 1, 2, 3. If we match, I'm like, see, we're on the same ship here. Like, this is incredible. Like, we are so aligned. Go us. If we disagree, I'll often go with their idea.
I am stealing that. Okay, I'm gonna find out your number and where you live, and I'm gonna ask you all these screenwriting questions. I won't bore anyone anymore. But that is amazing. I love your style. And last
Well, they've
question.
definitely thought about it more than I have in that sense because I'm thinking about like every department. So unless I'm like really adamant, otherwise, if I'm not sure, I'll just be like, like, oh, if I'm definitely sure about it, they would have known and they would have picked the right thing. But they're coming to me because like I haven't thought about it enough. They're not completely clear on it, and so I'm like, well, your instincts will probably be right because you've spent like 3 hours worrying about this to the point where you've decided to come to me about this. So yeah, let's make this fun. 1, 2, 3, and we're going with your idea because of course you're right.
I still think that's great, especially the ego and the empowerment. I think that's how you foster creativity. You can't say anything. That's great. And last question on that, is there going to be a season 3?
Yeah, I hope so. Like season 2 ended, and every season sort of ends like it could be the last, and then I just would love to make a third season, only because I feel like the first season of Double Part, this is about this like same-sex relationship. They both, in their kind of fertility journey, both end up being pregnant at the same time. So they're just dealing with the identity of being pregnant and the identity of being mothers, like kind of at the same time, even though they might come out at like different directions.
Yeah.
And with that, it's like season 1 is about like, there's a lot about like fear and dreams and expectations and how they kind of affect the way that we operate. And then season 2 is about like facing that head on, like kind of not the consequences, but like sort of just like, okay, we don't have time to worry about this now because we have babies in our hands. Like, how do you just sort of like survive that? And then I thought it would be interesting to look at the idea of like thriving and how we can enjoy the choices that we make in life and how hard it is to enjoy like how hard it is to enjoy your dreams because when they come true, like you'll often put something else ahead of yourself to like want versus being like, well, I got what I wanted and how can I be like content? So I kind of want to take them on holiday. Like I wanted them to be like actively trying to enjoy their time and get in the way of that. So yeah, I mean, I've done all the development for it. I've done the Bible, I've written the pilot and second episode, and now we're just waiting for the gods to fund it.
I'm very excited for you. Amazing. I'm very proud of you. You're living my dream, and I
love that you say that you're proud of me. No one says that. I think my parents do, but
we'll clip it. Could be your ringtone as well. I want to talk about your comedy shows because you're currently touring and you're also coming to Australia. Stop being so dramatic. Can you tell me about it and why it inspires you to do the show?
Yeah, I think this year's, I mean, every year you're like, what's the theme? Like, where am I at? I think last year's show was so much about like my relationship with what we've been talking about, like my phone and this like digital career and kind of hating it and beginning to resent it. But also being like, it's given me everything. And this year I've been thinking so much about like, my background in performance and like how I didn't come at this from a conventional like stand-up route, but I'm one of those drama kid stand-ups. And like I'm kind of fueled by maybe some of the resentment I feel from like, and this could be like an internalized resentment that I'm like imagined, or it could be like real evidence of like, yeah, we don't love drama kids and we don't love show offs. And I'm a bit of a hypochondriac and I've always been a bit of a drama queen. And so I'm like, I feel like I just really feel quite like restless at the moment in terms of my performer identity. And so I just between you and I, like, and like who's listening, obviously, I
and the millions of people,
comedy nerds,
yeah.
but like, I feel like these feelings, like the part of me that's like diminished the more sort of theatrical sides to myself, or like the sort of drama kid in me. I'm like, it's weird that sort of has come about, and for me to be like, be more broad, be more conventional, be more of a stand-up. it's interesting that all this sort of internalized dialogue has happened at the same time we've seen like a rise in fascism. I was like,
Maybe that's the area you need to lean into.
fascism.
Yeah.
I think I'm just like, oh, like maybe, yeah, I'm like, maybe the way that the right and those conservatives have sort of won in this way is by making people like me sort of resent the qualities about myself I should be the proudest of and sort of quash them and sort of give up. Um, and so, yeah, I don't know. I feel like the show's going to be really funny, but like quite sort of sincere and earnest maybe at the end, which is like, a trope. And we love to be like, oh, here we go. Like,
Yeah.
Nanette ending or whatever. And it's like, it's not a Nanette ending, but I've also been like, yeah, coming head to head with that idea of being like, why do we say a Nanette ending? Because that was a seminal piece of work that changed comedy forever. It is like, in my eyes, the most important comedy work that's like, there was like pre-Nanette and post-Nanette, like it defined the comedy hour. So we shouldn't roll our eyes at it or have that kind of stupid attitude towards it. Like, because it's important. And also I feel like the reaction of people kind of skewing away from that and just being like, it's just stupid. It's just a stupid hour. Like, it doesn't have to be about anything. I'm like, yeah, sure, that's all well and good. But like every day now, it feels like our rights are being encroached in on. So like if there were a year to sort of, I don't know, like talk about how you feel, I'm like, maybe this is the year. So look, I should stop being so dramatic about these feelings, but therein lies the title. So I think I've got a few work in progresses to sort of iron this all out, but it's mainly about, yeah, being a little bit over the top, a little bit dramatic, and wanting and sort of being embarrassed about those qualities and now wanting to embrace them.
I love that. I love the character arc, and you've got a great character arc. We've only just skimmed a little bit of your life. We'll put all of that in the episode notes. I think you're coming, is it just Melbourne? Just so people know.
I'm doing Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Perth, and I'm doing Adelaide next week.
Okay, so probably, we'll see if we can, I don't know if we'll be out for Adelaide, but all the other ones.
No, but Melbourne for sure.
Excellent.
Brisbane, Sydney. I've never done Perth. I'm excited.
Oh, I haven't heard that before. I'm excited to go to Perth, so I'm excited for you. No, I'm just joking.
Well, you know me. I love a challenge.
Yeah, I've heard Perth can be quite good. Cool. That's really exciting. And I reckon to wrap up the podcast, we'll do a rapid fire segment.
Okay, this is really hard for me because I can waffle. Okay.
There's no rules to this. You can literally do an essay on each one. I'm just not going to comment on them because I'll derail them.
Okay, here we go.
We'll start with some of the silly ones. What the fuck is felting? I know we spoke about it at the start.
Oh my gosh.
And are you surprised how like famous you became because of it?
I mean, I haven't really done any more felting since I became like the felting guy, and I became very aware that I had become the felting guy. Yeah. And I was like, that's not the niche I've really wanted to carve for myself. So basically it's needle felting. So it's one of the oldest textile forms in the world. It's the process of taking unrefined, like unprocessed wool, and with stabbing it multiple times with a very sharp needle so that the fibers knot and course and to create felt, as we know it from like felt. And I know too much about it.
No, I think that's amazing. And I said I wouldn't comment. And then are you surprised that your work made a museum or twice?
Yeah, it's made into two museums. I made a felt hat for COVID. It's in the Auckland War Memorial Museum, which is like our main museum here, and it's also in the photo of it is in Te Papa. I am surprised. I think it's an indictment on like what we considered museum worthy in this country, but I'm happy that I'm in there. I love that I've sort of like it will outlive us all, and it's being taken care of so well, and I did enjoy learning about museums through the process. I got quite like, linked up with like the museum curators, like our most intense museum curators of this country.
Cool. Why are you scared of magpies?
I've always been scared of birds. I hate the idea of them swooping me. Um, I don't like the idea of beaks being caught in my body. Like I just feel like they could fly and then get their like beak caught in my leg. And I also don't like feathers. I hate that feathers are like it's like all their like fluff on a stick, and then I'm like that stick thing's like in their body, and it just like creeps me out. Anyway, it's just been an irrational fear that I thought about when I was 14, and now I'm like really afraid of them. I'll like cross the road if I see them.
Are there, I assume you get magpies in New Zealand.
Yeah, I think the Australian ones are more intense, like obviously, but
They
we've
come
got
at you sometimes. They actually really come and swoop,
yeah,
especially.
they're horrific. Like
They're
and everyone's like,
jerks.
oh, don't be scared of magpies, but I'm like, no, they get you. Like not many animals try and get you in New Zealand. Like none, but magpies will.
Uh, this one you will probably get into trouble for, but who's the funniest New Zealand comedian?
Oh my god, such a good question. Tom Sainsbury, probably. Yeah, who I write with a lot. He is so funny. He is so funny. I just laugh at him all the time.
What did Taskmaster do for your soul?
Um, Taskmaster did my soul. It, uh, it was. It was like, yeah, it was the most fun ever. I mean, every day you just got to turn up and someone had created a bunch of challenges for you and you just got to like be as creative as you wanted. I found it like endlessly inspiring and fun. And I guess because I was coming off the back of Celebrity Treasure Island, which was like the same vibe, but it was like, if you fail, you're eliminated. No money for queer kids. To be on a show that's like, if you fail, people will laugh. It's a triumph. We embrace failure. Like that was quite healing for me.
We had David Corios on, and he was saying how important it was for him and his creative process as well. It sounds amazing.
Oh yeah, David's like in my eyes a true artist. Like he is just constantly riffing on the form and being like, "What more could I do with this? Like, what more can I make?" He's such an inspiring dude.
I agree. I love him. And I'm surprised. And this is just like this new wave of New Zealand comedians are killing it. There are so many as well. Like destroying the Australian comedians and putting them on notice. There's this wave of you guys that are
Well, I
coming
wonder
through.
what like there must be a reaction to that eventually, where people are like, "We're closing the borders, no more. Go back to where you came from."
Yeah. Because you guys are doing too well.
Well,
Oh,
it's just because our industry's imploding over here.
oh nice.
Anyway, keep it
Oh,
up, keep it light,
imploding,
quick
not
fire, quick fire.
exploding. Yeah. Would you ever move overseas permanently, like Australia, America, UK?
I think Ursh, like Ursula Carlson's sort of like such a role model, inspiring, like um aspirational career figure that I sort of look to, which is like no everyone sort of claims her. Like Aussies are like, she's ours.
Yeah.
And like then she sort of started to blow up in America and UK and but I think she kind of lives out west in like West Auckland. So but you know, I like the idea that I could live in this country, but work anywhere.
Nice.
And
And
I don't have kids, and I've just got like one pot plant to keep alive. And my husband's like, chase your dreams. So yeah, I think that's sort of the plan.
that's amazing. And he's also a designer as well. But I do have a pet peeve. He has a
Yeah.
great name, Michael, but he spelt Michael wrong the first time. Why didn't he switch the Michaels around? This is a pet peeve because when people spell my name wrong, the blood boils.
His name is Michael. I wish that was like a creative choice that well, no, it's just it's wild. That's just the name he was given. We don't know why, but like on his passport, his birth certificate, his first name is Michael. His middle name is also Michael.
You would assume.
And they're spelled differently. One's Micheal, one's Michael. And
Normally
that's,
when you,
I think most people are dealing with the two Michaels that they don't even comprehend the idea that they're spelled differently. They're just like, what? Wait, what do you mean it's two Michaels?
it blew my mind, and I just have that personal pet hate of that name, being that he spelled it
actually
wrong.
so random. Like, I can't believe I'm married to someone who's called Michael. Like, it's crazy.
I would have thought like if a parents named a kid like that, they would be like they would have like never have drunk clean water. But it sounds like you've got a, they're doing great. So I
We've
don't
been together for 10 years and we're just like every year I'll just be like, wait a minute. Your name is Michael. Michael, what?
I'm
And
gonna.
he's like, I know. He sort of
I'm.
resigned to it, but I'm like, it's so funny.
It's unbelievable. I'm gonna use that idea in one of my screenplays of having the same name, or maybe even their surname as well. Unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
What are you most proud of?
Um, what am I most proud of is probably my relationship with Michael. Like, I feel like we've built such a good life together, and I think it's so important to like, to like really separate like the personal and the professional in some ways. So like, I think the things that I tried to be the most proud of are like, my friendships, my relationships with people. They're the most important things. So they're the things I'm the most proud of.
Cool. What would you?
Sorry to be earnest in a podcast for once.
No, that's. I think that's the best answer. What would you do if you knew you cannot fail?
Oh God. Probably wouldn't try. Like, right? You're like, oh, what's the point? I'm gonna kill it. Like, I'll be amazing. I feel
Yeah.
like the jeopardy of failure is like why we attempt things because it's like, it would just if you always succeeded, then it wouldn't feel good. It would just be like, well, it's a given. It's as a given as Michael. It's like, but the jeopardy of this could all burn up in flames, and I want this to go well so badly is like why we try things.
Brilliant answer.
Sorry to be earnest once
We're gonna get
again.
you a
in a
TED
podcast.
Next big dream or
I
goal.
heard like an imaginary room of people clicking just like that. Just
I just saw like the TED Talk, everyone clapping, getting a standing ovation. Like, fine, I'll do it again.
Stupid.
Next big dream or goal.
Um, I've got like 2 TV show ideas in development that I would love to make, and a movie that I've been working with Tom for like 9 years, and so I would love for that to be made as well because I'm so sick of emailing about it. I'm just like, it's funny. It's like draft 19. It's always been great. Let's get this made.
You're gonna get it made. You're living the dream. And any advice you want to give to people who want to try something different or new, but perhaps a bit fearful of doing so?
Try something new on me.
That's happened once before. Try this. Any advice you want
Like
to
a
give to young
massage or
people
like
who want to try something different or new, but perhaps a bit fearful of doing so?
oh, on
Yeah.
you. I was
I
like,
need to
wow.
read that better because you're the second
Like,
person to hear
try
it that
something
way.
new on me. I'm like, what is that? Like a handshake? Okay. Trying something different on you. Like, just do it. Like, what are you so worried about? Like, I think it's fun. Like, remind yourself that this stuff is fun and you want to do it because you want to like enjoy it or be thrilled by it or be challenged by it. And man, challenge is so crazy, isn't it? Because it's like once you are being challenged, you're like, I hate being challenged. And then when you are out of like being challenged, you're like, I learned so much. I grew so much as a person. I'm so much better for it. And I think, whenever I like am in a period of being like challenged, I'm like, this is hell on earth. And you sort of forget like that's why you decided to do that. So yeah, I guess just like don't listen to all the parts of your personality that are like, this is a bad idea. And just like lean into it. Yes, and it's that improv brain, I guess. Just like leap in.
Amazing.
What is the worst that could happen?
Could break your foot.
Truly.
But
It'll
then you do
heal.
it.
Bones
Yep.
are amazing.
True. Great answer. I enjoyed that. Second last question. I don't know if this was a tongue-in-cheek comment, but when you were filming the show, did you have to film naked on a mountain?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, Nude Tuesday. I
How
did a
was that?
movie with Australian acting royalty, Damon Herriman. What a legend he is. Um, that was a film I did also post-COVID where it was all in like gibberish. It was all like a made-up language. It's called Nude Tuesday. And then the last scene of the movie, it's like we all go on this big naked hike through like the big tall mountains, like where they shot like Lord of the Rings. But they were like fully dressed and we were butt naked apart from like shoes, and I wore like a beanie and necklace. What was that experience like? Was, yeah, like I haven't fully processed that. I guess I was so anxious about it. I was so nervous. I'm not like I have the best body ever. I've got the body I've got. It's not changing as much as I've tried to change it. It's definitely just like staying as is. And also I'm in like this like 10-year loving relationship. So it's not like I was like, no one's ever going to want to have sex with me ever again, because we have a legal contract that this man has to have sex with me again, despite maybe looking terrible in a movie. These are all the things that were going through my head.
Yeah.
And how I got to do it was that it was similar to being like Time as a Healer, where I was like, just do the next thing. So it would be like, wake up, go have a shower, wait for the driver, be driven to set. Like, I just couldn't think about the whole day. I just did like each task as it came until I was like, take your robe off, act alongside Jermaine Clement naked. Like, it was just so surreal, but it was thrilling. Like, yeah, it was really cathartic. And now weirdly, it's this cool thing I've done, and everyone's like, oh, I could never do that. Or like, I can't even watch it because I just feel like it would be so weird. And I'm like, I feel like really empowered by it.
Nice. Great answer. I'm glad that Jermaine, I've already forgot his name, but I love him. Yeah, I got to be a part of that as well.
Oh, maybe he's the funniest New Zealander. I don't know. Like, oh gosh, he's so good. It was crazy. I was like, he's so nice. He's such a great guy.
Good to hear.
He's such a good actor, and he's so funny.
I love hearing stories like that. Last question before I ask how people can follow you and keep up to date with you.
Sure.
What is the one question I should have asked you?
This has been such a good interview, by the way.
Thank you.
It's such a great last question. Okay, what is the question you should have asked me? We covered a lot. Maybe like, okay, the question you should ask next time is like, like, what does success look like for you, or something? Like, or did you ask that?
No, answer it. If you want.
And do I have to answer it?
Yeah.
Oh, so it's a good trick. I guess why I asked that question is like, it's more about like, yeah, like, I think because you have to really grapple with success or like your ambition all the time in a job like this, and you have to redefine it for yourself. And so I feel like I have done that now. And so I feel like success for me is like, it's like when I am like true to my word and create something, or like don't get sort of seduced by like exterior factors, and I can like stick to like my own integrity, do it my way, and stay and sort of honor myself, my vision, my voice. And so it's not about like reviews, numbers, or money. Like, it always has to be about like the vision.
You're an inspiration. That's amazing. I can see why you're the world's best showrunner. And before we go, how can people follow you and keep up to date with you?
Okay, so I'm on Instagram, that amazing platform. You can find me Chris Parker 11. I will never change the number.
Not to 12, not to 13.
I'm on
11.
TikTok. I believe it's Chris Parker NZ. Again, I will never drop the acronym for my place from where I'm from. Facebook, no, it's not worth it. I'll be in the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. I'll be Sydney, Perth, Brisbane. And then that's it. It feels like, yeah.
I will put all of it in the episode notes so people can check it out as well. And also the tour dates, of course. Thank you. You are hilarious. You're inspiring. You're living the dream. I love this. And yeah, thank you so much.
Hey, well, this was the best interview of my life. So thank you so much. You asked great questions.
I love how Chris talks about how he received an opportunity and how it was perhaps perceived in a more negative light. However, Chris took it upon himself to embrace the opportunity and make it the best experience he could. This is a great lesson for me because often people in our lives can give us information or tell us things that may not necessarily ring true to us. Chris is the perfect example of, regardless of what experience you have, You have the ability to flick the switch and make it your own. So I'll leave you with this epic quote. How we interpret a situation decides how we experience it. Create new experiences by thinking differently about what you encounter. Jerry Corsten.
Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy.